Hi, hello everyone. I'm Sam Harrison. I read, review, and discuss fantasy and science fiction books. Today we are discussing Chapter 36, Volume 1 of The Wandering Inn. This is the rewrite Wandering Inn. So if you are a Wandering Inn fan and you're thinking to yourself, oh, what's he actually covering? I'm covering the rewrite edition. And this is my first ever time reading Wandering Inn. If this is your first time finding my Wandering Inn content and videos, I have reviewed every single chapter up to now. And they're all in a playlist on the channel, which you can find down below. But let's get straight into things, because this is a long chapter and I don't want to make the world's longest video. So we're going to go straight in. Right. So we start with Ryoka's leg healing being finished. So last week we were kind of left with Ryoka has come to the Wandering Inn to Liscor, and Pisces has used his necromancy and kind of knowledge and mastery of how bones work to heal her leg. But he's not actually healed the leg. What he does is he has reconstructed the bone. Sorry about that. Some weird person just walked straight past my window. He has reconstructed the bone, so it's now like a fully solid and healthy normal bone again, because previously there were just shards of bone all up in her leg. And then this week, Chiria pours an expensive healing potion on her leg to finish the healing up. And then the first thing that Ryoka does, she like tests her leg a couple of times and then just starts doing like backflips and like flip kicks and martial arts and stuff. And everyone's like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like that. And she's like, yeah, it's just, parkour and martial arts. And that was quite funny. And it's interesting that there's just no martial arts in the Wandering Inn world, or like that the Horns of Hammerand are just not familiar with it at all. So that was interesting. And I am sure that there will be some martial arts related stuff later, because I feel like Ryoka being a martial artist is kind of important to the story, or at least kind of core to her character. The parkour stuff was fun as well. Like, obviously you kind of need to be like a low level decent skill at parkour if you're going to be a runner, because you're going to have to run over and under things and all that sort of stuff. And there's multiple references how the innkeeper is out, which is obviously a big tease from Pirate Arbor to us. It was Erin, the innkeeper, is not around. And going back a little bit, so I saw that this chapter was 136, right? And I was like, right, so there's no R. That means that it's not a Ryoka chapter, it means it's an Erin chapter. And then the first paragraph was a Ryoka POV. I was like, oh, this is it. This actually is it. It's happening. They're meeting. And then it turns out, no, that Erin is off in the forest exploring. Which is something that we knew she was going to be doing. So, I guess it's only have myself to blame. So, once she does some, she does some parkour, she does some flips and shit, and then she's like, they're like, oh, do you want to stay at the inn? We've been traveling for 2 days non-stop. And Ryoka's like, actually, no, I'm gonna run home. And the guy, Calruz, even, he's not really a guy, he's a Minotaur. Calruz is like, that's like 100 miles home. So fun fact, I have run 30 miles in an ultra marathon previously, and that took 7 hours, and I did it very slowly. A lot of people were finishing in, like 5. So he's like, oh, no one can run 100 miles. And like, people do run 100 miles. Pirate Arbor, if you ever watch these videos and you're looking for a long distance running consultant, hit me up. I love fantasy and running. So Yeah, so running 100 miles isn't completely beyond the pale in terms of human capability. There's a race in the UK called the Spine Race, which I think is 230 miles, and it goes along an entire mountain range, and it takes like 7 days. There's loads of really, really good documentaries about ultramarathons. If you want to watch, and this is a real tangent now, but if you want to watch a great ultramarathon documentary, I would really recommend the one on the Barkley marathons, which I believe is on Prime Video. That's where I watched it. Anyway, there's a lot of great YouTube documentaries that are completely free as well. It's in fact, I think there's one called The Race That Eats Its Young, which is also about the Barkley, which is like supposedly the hardest ultramarathon in the world, although I do think that Arc of Attrition in Cornwall was probably harder. Anyway, so she goes running, Ryoka goes for a run, and she's like miles and miles and miles away, and then Relk is just there. He's escorting some merchants to Liscor, and he sees her and starts to try and keep up. And Relk is actually able to keep up at Ryoka's like comfortable running speed, even though he's wearing full armor and carrying a spear. And Ryoka's like, oh, this guy actually, you know, he's as fast as me. And we see a POV from Relk that's very shortly after Ryoka leaves him in the dust by accelerating and speeding up. And Relk's like, I've actually never been beaten in a foot race before, and never by a human. So that was fun. It's good to see. It's interesting to see Ryoka interact with characters that we know from Erin's story, like Pisces and now Relk. Although I'm not sure we like Relk anymore. I think Relk might be an asshole. I think we might not like him. But Pisces is still good. We like Pisces. Somebody said in the comments for last week's video, Pisces is best boy, and I don't know whether I would say that so far, but I guess he's one of the only younger male characters, so maybe. Anyway, so after Ryoka's doing loads of running, she does her foot race, and she just kind of feels amazing. And then Relk's like, oh, she was a human. I wonder if Erin knows her. And then we shift to the Erin perspective. And at this point, I'm like, okay, I guess Erin and Ryoka aren't going to meet. It's going to take forever. But Ryoka's gone off, and Erin is in a forest. And she's doing what she said she was going to do, which is exploring around the inn so that she knows kind of what's around. But I think it's revealed in this chapter that she kind of has an ulterior motive for this. So Erin is like exploring this forest, and then she finds that she's got this skill called Danger Sense. I think we talked about this previously. She has this skill called Danger Sense, and so she's walking around. She's like, oh, can't touch those flowers because they ping on my Danger Sense. Oh, can't touch these trees because they explode. And she throws a rock at the tree, and it does. Sorry about this. It's half term, so I'm a parent, and you know how it is. If you're a half term and you're a parent and you work from home, you're 10 times more tired. Anyway, so Erin is she throws this rock at this tree, and the tree explodes into like a huge thing of like fireworks and shrapnel, which is fun. Then Erin notices that she's being crept up on, like kind of ambushed by a spider. And when she looks at the spider, she's like, oh, that spider's got like body armor on. So I'm thinking to myself, like, oh, is this a new supporting character? Are we going to have like we've got an Ant-Man in the inn. Are we going to get a Spider-Man t-shirt? Unintentional. I'm going to see Madam Web tonight, and I thought that for a joke, I would wear a Spider-Man t-shirt. Anyway, so we meet the spider, and I'm like, okay, so this spider, and then Erin like says something to it, and it pauses, And so I'm like, oh, actually, is this like, are we going to have an intelligent spider in the crew? Like, is this happening? And the pictures of the spider, there's a picture of the spider at the end of the chapter. And this, it wasn't exactly what I was imagining. Like, this armory stuff is a lot more, is a lot different to what I was imagining. However, love the art, by the way. The art is by, it says, Anurin. Yeah, Anurin. So well done, Anurin, on that artwork. It's fantastic. I like how it looks like old school kind of medical textbook style stuff. So Erin is kind of crept up on by this spider, and she's like, right, I'm going to like throw a rock at it. So she throws the rock, and the rock hits it, and it like blows up its eye. And then the spider's like, well, I've got more than one eye, and it just kind of keeps coming. And then she's got a jar of acid fly acid, which she also throws at it, and it like burns it, but the burn kind of stops pretty quickly. And Erin realizes that if anything is going to be immune to acid flies, it's going to be a spider, because spiders eat flies. So they've probably evolved in the ecosystem that they're in to not be killed by these acid flies. So she's kind of like, oh, I don't know what's going on. Then she throws her knife. She's bought a knife. She throws her knife at it. And even though she's got her unerring throw skill, it just kind of bounces off. So I guess maybe she needs to think a little bit about unerring throw and how that works. Or maybe there's limits to the skill and what it can do for you. But so she's got, she's kind of like got this spider and it's coming for her, and she's about to run away, and then a bit of the ground kind of like falls away, and she sees a hole in the ground which is full of these spiders and eggs and all this. Like, this is pretty horrible. As an arachnophobe, this was pretty horrible, and kind of creepy. And she's like, right, there's all these spiders here. I've got to defend myself. I've got to take them out. And she decides, she just kind of like punches the spider. Like, we don't really see it happen. It happens off camera. But she wraps her hand in the leather bag that she was wearing. And then the next thing that you see is another character. So a new POV. And this character, I believe their name, it's not revealed until later, but their name is Ghazi. And they are half gazer. And they're described as having a lot of eyes, like one big central eye and then 4 around the edge, which is kind of spider adjacent, interestingly. Obviously, they have lots of eyes, but I don't think that's intentional. And also, the gazer is described as being able to see behind them, which is fun. And she's meant to be like famous. So the Ghazi is meant to be famous or something like that. She's got a reputation. There's a lot of foreshadowing that there's something going on with her, that she's like a big deal. And Ghazi finds it quite refreshing that Erin doesn't really care. But obviously Erin doesn't care because she doesn't know. And there's a lot of interesting stuff where like Erin is like just asking her very blatant questions. Like, the woman's like, Ghazi, like, oh, are you going to take a shield spider corpse and claim the bounty? You'll get a lot of money from that. And Erin's like, oh, there's a bounty on shield spiders? And it's like all of this stuff, There is a section where she's like, Erin's like, jumps back into... So she's built, during the intervening time, after she's killed the spider, by the way, she's set a fire and she is burning the nest. And she jumps into the nest and pulls out a tiny baby spider, which then immediately tries to murder her. And Ghazi's like, oh, what are you going to do with that? She's like, oh, maybe I'll raise it. And Ghazi's like, no, the second you, like, turn your back, it'll try and kill you. That's just how those animals are. Which is an interesting thing to say in a fantasy world where... I guess that there are these characters in particular are just kind of these creatures, even though they seem to have some kind of intelligence because they understand that Erin is talking to them. They seem to be pretty rudimental, like hunter-killer style things. Like, they don't have any higher function beyond that. Can the shield spiders level? That's something we'll have to find out. So, yeah, we get a lot of conversation between Ghazi and Erin, and a lot of it is from Ghazi's point of view at the end of this chapter, which is interesting. And Erin's like, oh, pardon me. Erin just kind of doesn't want to be around anyone, and she's like, a part of her wanted to go out and do this exploring thing because she wanted to prove that she's self-sufficient, but then she also doesn't want to be a killer. She doesn't want to just mindlessly kill things, even though, like, because she's killed the hobgoblin and she's put, the no killing goblin sign up at the inn. And she she has nightmares about killing this hobgoblin, but then Klibich dies to save her, and she's processing that trauma. So yeah, a lot of trauma processing is happening right now for Erin. And as we enter the second half of Volume 1, I think we're starting to see the kind of threads of her character and where that's going to go. I mean, like, she's building relationships with these important characters like Pisces, who seems to be the only necromancer in Liscor, with Pawn, the new free Antinium, and with Ghazi, who is, there's some, as I say, foreshadowing that she's very important. So, yeah, interesting. And also, even, we know that the rock crabs are scared of Ghazi. We learned that in the final line in the chapter. So, yeah, lots of interesting stuff in this one. I really liked Ghazi, from what we saw with her. I liked Ryoka's running and jumping and flipping. I am sad that the characters didn't meet. And it does feel a bit like a bit of a bait and switch. But maybe both of these characters need to be isolated because if you can rely on someone who has that same life experience as you, if you can, if you have your Earth friend or whatever, I think that the problem that you have there is that they can rely on each other. They don't have to integrate as strongly with the fantasy world of in-world. So I get it. I know why you're doing it, Pirate Arbor. I understand. I'm mildly disappointed, but I think that maybe the story would have been weaker if we had two Earth humans as, friends and buds and backup for each other. And also, would Erin and Ryoka be friends? I feel like Ryoka would not be friends with Erin. I don't know. We'll see. There's obviously thousands upon thousands of more words to read in this, even just in this volume. So, never say never. But I will say never for more of this episode. That wasn't very well structured. A lot happens in this chapter. It's really good. Again, continuously enjoying this series and really excited for next week. And there's now a cat throwing up next to me. I hope you can't hear that on the video. And now I have to go clean this up. So thanks so much for watching this video. It's a weird ending. And please do like and comment and subscribe and all that jazz. And I'll see you tomorrow or next week if you only watch the One Ring In videos.